Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining me for tonight's episode of Beyond the Ballot. It's good to have you all with me. I'm Brady Meyer. Tonight, we're going to continue our stretch of hearing from candidates for the 96th District Court Judge position here in Marquette County. In just a few minutes, I'll share my recent conversation with the county's Chief Public Defender, Patrick Crowley. But first, let's get into some top headlines in politics from DC to the UP, starting in Washington, which is looking a little bit like the UP right now with all that rain. Earlier today in DC, Congress passed a 10-day extension of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which was set to expire on Monday. This measure is awaiting a signature by President Donald Trump. Reauthorizing the act has been a contentious issue on Capitol Hill. Republican leaders believed they had reached a deal with conservative holdouts, but those talks failed to bring enough privacy-focused Republicans on board. The House ultimately rejected the substance of the 5-year deal and also blocked a procedural vote that would have advanced a separate 18-month clean extension that the Trump administration had pushed for all week. Speaker Mike Johnson says the agreed upon 10-day extension buys time to resolve remaining disputes. Johnson also acknowledges there are still major differences over how to balance national security and civil liberties, but said leadership expects to reach a final agreement before the new deadline. Well, in other national news, Iran says the Strait of Hormuz, a key global shipping channel, will be completely open to all commercial vessels for the remaining period of the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire. Iran's foreign minister posted the statement to social media today, saying saying this is in line with the 10-day ceasefire that just began. President Donald Trump also posted on social media this morning saying, quote, Iran has just announced that the Strait of Iran is fully open and ready for full passage. Well, now let's turn our attention to Michigan, where nurses are one step closer to seeing legislation pass which would protect them from burnout. Two bills just passed in the Michigan Senate that would ban mandatory overtime for nurses and help with efforts to retain nurses in the state. Senator Ed McBroom is leading this effort. The Michigan Nurses Association and political leaders advocated for the bills yesterday in Lansing. McBroom sees the bill as a protective measure for the nursing industry.
These bills really seek to help out our healthcare situation by making sure that our nurses are not being forced to work unsafe amount of hours, and that hospitals aren't using overtime as a method to keep a reduced amount of staff.
And with the legislation passing the Senate, it now advances to the House. And the Michigan Chamber of Commerce and others who oppose the bill have argued staffing decisions should be handled collaboratively at the hospital level rather than through broad government mandates. They warn the legislation could worsen shortages and force hospitals to reduce services or close beds. Instead, they support flexible, locally driven solutions. Well, now we move to Upper Michigan as we segue into my interview with today's guest. First, though, I want to take you all back to September of last year. That's when Marquette County's current Chief Public Defender, Patrick Crowley, announced his campaign for the 96th District Court Judge seat. That announcement came after 25 years as a practicing attorney. Crowley says as judge, he will work to run trials faster. Back when he launched the campaign, Crowley said addressing speed was a goal. As an example, he said from getting the initial charge to a resolution, a misdemeanor case in Marquette County could take anywhere from 6 to 11 months. Here's what he had to say last September.
And that's just too long, right? That's not efficient for the law enforcement. It's not efficient for victims. It's not efficient for defendants. And that's just on the criminal side of things. If we're talking about the civil side of things as well, landlord-tenant cases or general civil cases that might be heard in that court, those things often are forced to kind of be pushed to the back burner.
Well, Crowley says everyone deserves to be heard and respected. Well, that interview, again, was shot in September, a while ago. So with that much time passed, I wanted to sit down with Crowley to discuss his campaign so far and go a little bit deeper into what he would like to see for the future of the court system here in Marquette County. We talked about those topics and a whole lot more yesterday when we had a chance to sit down. Take a listen to our conversation. Joined here today by Patrick Crowley, Marquette Chief Public Defender and candidate for District Court Judge. Good to have you with me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so let's get right into it. First of all, any candidate that I interview, I always start with the same question, and that is, who is Patrick Crowley? Just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, first, I'm a Northern Michigan University grad. I went to the University of Dayton for law school. Please don't hold it against me, but I did marry a Buckeye. I have two adult children. They are both, my son's a medical student down at the University of Western Michigan, and my daughter is a paleontologist working on her PhD out in Oklahoma. So, two adult children. I am the Chief Public Defender, which means that I am the person who started, created all the policies, hired all the people, and runs the training and functioning of the Marquette County Public Defender's Office currently. Marquette County Public Defender's Office, we see about 1,800 cases a year, and I generally tend to get the problem children. I get the tough cases.
So tell me a little bit about your experience with law, both in that capacity and any other experiences that you have that you believe position you well to take on the role of judge.
Sure. So let me start by just simply saying that everybody who's in this race, we all went to law school, we all graduated from law school, we all took the bar, we all live and work in Marquette County, and we all have extensive experience in the areas that we have. So let me tell you what differentiates me. Again, my experience in creating the Public Defender's Office. In addition to that, I have practiced in, I think we have 83 counties in the state of Michigan. I've been in 77 of them. I've been in front of hundreds, if not thousands, of different judges, and I have the experience of being in front of good judges, and I have the experience of being in front of bad judges, or judges that I don't agree with. How about that? And during that time and that experience, it gives me a perspective that allows me to know what works and what doesn't, both in terms of a criminal background as well as landlord-tenant, or even civil infractions like tickets, traffic tickets and things like that. So that's my experience in a nutshell.
So why is this something, I guess, that you want to do, both for your own professional career and just for where you hope to see Marquette County continue to go in the future?
Sure. Well, let me say that Marquette County deserves to have a district court that works for the residents of Marquette County. What I mean to say is it shouldn't be the other way around, right? The court doesn't exist. The court needs to have a level of respect, and this is all courts, right? Need to have a level of respect for understanding what the people that are appearing in front of them are going through. The district court is kind of like a MASH unit or an emergency room. The district court is organized chaos. That's where most people's first interaction with the court system begins. And so a district court needs to, obviously, a district court judge needs to know the law, but also needs to understand people and needs to understand the circumstances that brought them before the court, and needs to understand, how best to, either from a criminal standpoint, fix the problem so that it doesn't happen again, but also on things like a landlord-tenant, right? How do we facilitate people not losing their home in February? Or how do we make sure that landlord gets paid for the rents that they're not getting paid? And those things simply take experience.
So is there anything that, you have obviously plenty of experience working in Marquette County. Is there anything that you would hope to maybe change or improve that you might have a little more access to do so as judge compared to your current position in public defender?
Absolutely. One of the probably the most important thing that I would like to do when I take the bench is I would very much like to create what is known as a mental health court. Here in Michigan, we have a number of different types of specialty courts. We have a sobriety court and a drug court. We even have a veterans court for those specific segments of the population. We don't have a mental health court, and we don't have a mental health court for a couple of reasons. First of all, it takes a lot of buy-in from the court and from a judge to set one up. Secondly, it's going to create, it doesn't create, it requires a lot of funding, and that comes from the state, right? And so it requires a lot of service providers in the community in order to provide the mental health services that are required for someone who might be involved with the court. Right now, what we're doing is we are taking, I think it's like 38% of the cases that come through Marquette County have significant mental health components to them. So if what we're doing is we're taking those mental health challenges and we're simply using the court system to adapt to them, and it doesn't do it well. So what we need to do is we need to identify those early and put them into mental health treatment beforehand so that we can potentially fix the problem, and also so that we don't clog up or continue to clog up our court system with things that are not anything the court should have anything to do with, right? But that requires us to have a significantly larger number of service providers in the community, people who can provide the therapy and the counseling and the diagnosis that we just don't have. So again, if there's going to be a mental health court, it's going to require not just the coordination of services, but the actual addition of services. All of that's going to have to come through some degree of grant funding from the state. Thankfully, I have a lot of contacts with both the State Bar of Michigan. I'm on the Board of Commissioners down there, as well as, I practiced in the Lansing area for a while. So I know a lot of the key players that are going to be required to do that. In addition, I can tell you that the grant funding cycle that I do with the Public Defender's Office, because most of our money comes from the state as well through a grant, it's that same process that's going to be required in terms of all that administrative work.
You launched your campaign last fall. In the time since, from talking with voters, what are you seeing as the top issue or some of the top issues that people hope to maybe see their next judge address?
Speed. Right now, we for a misdemeanor trial in Marquette's district court, we are seeing some cases in a time frame of 11 to 14 months. That's absurd, right? If you're charged with a shoplifting, right, that case should be resolved in 90 days. It just should. Those things need to be moved along, and they need to be moved along faster. But in order to get there, and by the way, I will tell you that Chief Judge Weber has been trying his absolute best to move things along, and I look forward to working with him in that regard. So I'm sure that I'm not saying anything that is unknown, right, to the current district court. Those things have to move faster, and it's possible to do. It is possible. So speed. There's also a situation, we have a warrant list, right? Outstanding warrants for people who have unpaid fines or costs or something along those lines that is 57 pages long. It's about 3,000 people. And those people have unpaid fines to some amount, largely unpaid fines, going back 30 years. And if those people get picked up, they're going to get arrested, they're going to get pulled from the side of the road, they're going to get taken to the jail, they're going to get processed through the court, and all of that stuff takes a police officer off the road. It occupies the district court, it occupies the court, and it occupies all of the court staff on something that could be as literally as trivial as a $80 unpaid speeding ticket from 30 years ago. That's just inefficient. Right? It is just simply inefficient, and those kind of inefficiencies are what bogs the court down so that it can't take care of other things in a more rapid manner.
You had mentioned the different relationships that you have formed with people who are in the court system right now. This spot is open because Judge Kangas is retiring.
Yes.
What can you say about the work he's done and what you maybe hope to continue from what he's been able to establish?
Sure. So Judge Kangas is one of the very few judges that we currently have on the bench who came from a criminal defense background. I think that the interpersonal, client relationships that you build in representing clients in that manner, remember, these are people who are probably having their worst day ever, right, when you're interacting with them. His ability to understand what they're going through, that emotional intelligence, if you will, is quite frankly one of the greatest things that I notice about Judge Kangas. I think that he does, he interacts with the public very well. Those are things that we build through continued thousands and thousands of clients and representing those clients. And it's frankly something that I do well. And I would look to continue, frankly, I'd like to be as good as he is. Those are the kinds of things that I would like to understand what the people are going through who are in front of me, so that I can better, exercise the role of a judge. And again, I'm not trying to say that those people shouldn't, if they've committed a crime, they shouldn't be held accountable, because clearly they should. But it is important to understand and know where they're coming from.
All right, well, that is just about every question that I had for you. Before we wrap this up, though, I just want to give you one last chance. If there's anything we hadn't touched on to, talk about, or what you hope voters will keep in mind this fall.
Sure. I guess the most important thing, shameless plug here, I'll tell you that crowleyforjudge.com, if you have any interest in going and seeing anything more about me, please log in. Check it out. I do have some additional filling in the content that I've talked about today. And just remember to flip your ballot over to the other side and vote for Judge. It is a nonpartisan section on both primary ballots as well as the general election ballot. But make sure you vote for Judge, no matter who you vote for, even though it should be me.
All right, well, Patrick Crowley, candidate for 96th District Court Judge. Appreciate you taking some time to talk with me today.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
All right, there you have it. That was Patrick Crowley. I'd like to thank him once again for his time and chatting with me a little bit more about his campaign. Now, if you tuned in 2 days ago on Wednesday, you would have seen my interview with Bill Nordine, who's also running for the same position. If you haven't, it's on demand now on our website, and I encourage you to check it out. Now, there is one more person in this race, Marquette attorney Derek Swajinen. He and I had the chance to talk earlier today, so I'm happy to share that conversation with all of you on the next episode of Beyond the Ballot. That will be coming your way at the same time and place next Monday, April 20th, here at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there with me. Now, in the meantime, if you have any thoughts on today's episode or questions for any future episodes of Beyond the Ballot, please don't hesitate to reach out. My email is right there on the bottom of your screen right now. Otherwise, that will do it for tonight's episode of Beyond the Ballot. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Have a great night and a wonderful rest of your weekend.